Hey, what's up? Mr. Bill here. Today I wanted to tell you about this new thing that I'm launching. It's called 99 Racks. You can get it on my website. Recently, when I saw a bunch of those Virtual Riot videos that came out of him making like these really crazy, elaborate, useful racks, I figured like I got a ton of racks just sitting around that are kind of unfinished, and I figured if I clean them up, they'd be more useful to me and potentially more useful to other people. So here we are. We got 99 racks that I ended up with after cleaning up all these racks that I've been making for years. So I'm going to go through some of those now and explain what some of them do. And I'll start with this one on the master channel, which is the transient re-adder rack that I showed in my breakdown of a Virtual Riot remix I did that a bunch of people have been asking me about. And I will note that this is the only rack in this pack that uses third-party plugins. The rest of it is all Ableton stuff, and it will all work in Ableton 11. So this one uses Shaperbox. And basically what's going on here is you have three chains. One is a dry chain, which has two Shaperboxes on it, which cut off the first, like, basically, I don't know, less than, it's like a 128th note, like it just slices off the transient basically. It's like the tiniest amount of time. Like this whole box here is a 16th note, so it's like, maybe a 256th note, I don't know, it's like a tiny amount. So that slices the front off of the kick and the snare, and then you have these two other chains, and you take the input on this sidechain compressor from your kick and your snare channel, and then you take the kick chain one, you take the input from the kick, whichever one of these is your kick, and then on the snare one, you do the same thing but for your snare. And then these have another shaper box on them, and they do the opposite thing that these shaper boxes were doing. These ones just keep that transient, whilst the other one here is removing that transient. So basically what you get is like, you end up with two signals, one that's just the transient and one that's everything but the transient. And then you can kind of mix between them. And I guess the goal here is like, usually when you clip your signal a lot, like you can see on my master here, I just have a saturator that's clipping the hell out of the signal here. And so sometimes that can like blunt the transients a bit. So you put this after your clipper, and then you basically rebalance the mix to have more transient in it, and then you obviously clip it again because when it goes out as 16-bit, it's going to have to end up being 0 dB at some point. So basically this just gives you like a sort of different mix balance where you have more transients and less of the dry signal, so that your transients pop a little bit harder. So if we play just this chain, and also the reason why this works is because when you have a sidechain compressor and you press this little blue button here, this headphone icon, it just auditions that signal. So it doesn't actually play through the whole signal. This is just playing through the kick. So basically your kick is just like skipping the entire mix process and going straight to the master channel via this sidechain compressor. So if we play this, you'll see that it's just taking the kick here and just leaving the transient. Whoops, never mind. I have to switch my MIDI here to be this and this. Yeah, so if I turn this shaper box off, you get the entire kick, but if I turn it on, you just get the transient. So you can see this is the whole kick. The whole kick is like, what, maybe 100 milliseconds long, and it takes like the first tiny bit of it. So it's taking like 10 milliseconds or something like that. And then same for the snare. If we go and look at the snare one, the snare one takes a little bit more of the transient because I feel like it just kind of needed it in some of the tests that I was doing. So yeah, that's how that works. And then you have the opposite thing happening here on these ones whenever the kick or the snare happens. And these have a sidechain input here. The sidechain input is just coming from the rack itself. So you just select main, and then you just select the kick transient chain. And then on this one, you just do it for the snare. And then every time it detects audio, because Shaperbox is set to audio here, it will just remove that first little bit of transient. And then you have like some mix levels here. So you have this kick transient level, snare transient level. At this point, you could just shut this rack, and then you kind of just have this little area in which you can use to mix. I kind of like to leave it open just so I can see everything, but you don't really need it open. So here you can see these are mapped to the kick and the snare transient level, and then this is your entire master level. So you could drop your master level by 6 and then increase your kick and your snare transients by 6, and then you just get this really poppy sound, which is probably too extreme. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, but you can do it. So now you can hear the transients are like really, really popping. Usually I just like probably have these up by like 1 or 2 just to like add a tiny bit. But you can go as extreme or as not extreme as you want. And then it just has this re-clipper over here because obviously it's going to need to get clipped or limited at some point anyway. So, so yeah, that's that rack, and that is available in this pack. Now I'm going to talk about some of the other racks, and I'll start with drums. So here I have kicks and snares. So if we go to my kick rack here, I have a few different flavors of kick and a few different flavors of snare and a few different flavors of cymbal. And they're all sort of labeled here. They're all named with this tag drum. And anything that has generator at the end of it, it means you can hit the random button on it, and it's always going to do something that sounds hopefully reasonable. So I have 2 different kinds of kicks here. I have a slappy one and a knocky one. And essentially all these racks is operator, and then a bunch of post-processing and more post-processing, and yeah. And these are all just Ableton native stuff. So, and there's a few presets in here too, so you could just select from some of these presets. And if you don't like the slappy one, you could try the knocky one. So yeah, some pretty cool kicks and stuff in there. And if you don't like any of the presets that I've saved here, you can just hit the random button and you'll just get a new kick. That one actually sounds pretty solid to me. And then we have a bunch of snare options here too. So we have, and these are kind of the same deal. It's like, some of them are done with this DS snare, DS clap thing, and I've just mapped a bunch of stuff from there. Other ones more operator based, so you can see here there's like 3 operators, one for the clap, one for the noise, and one for the fundamental, and then there's like a corpus on here that's mapped to a bunch of stuff. And yeah, basically I've just kind of like spent a bunch of time getting the ranges into such a way on the mappings that when you hit the random button, it's always going to generate something that's kind of useful. And I feel like there's a balance here with racks like this. On one side, you can hit the random button and get way more results, and it can be way more random. And on the other end, you get stuff that's more useful but less versatility. So there's kind of a balance to be struck here, and I think I've done an okay job at striking that balance. So yeah, if we just play this, there's let's go with the normal snare first. So I will just play this and hit the random button a few times. So that's the normal snare. There's this weird snare too. Those snares have like a little bit of more like weird noise to them. And then there's this tonal DMB snare one, which I really like. This one is actually really, this is the low key, the weird snare. It, yeah, this one will do some crazy shit. I'm gonna mute this kick, it's annoying me. Yeah, hold on, undo. Yeah, that kind of stuff. I actually have been enjoying these sort of weird snares that this thing makes. those like weird just tonal ding. I'm into it. All right, so let's move on to cymbals here. So I got a bunch of cymbal generators that I made too. I'm going to turn these side chains off for now. Speaking of transients, lately I've been sidechaining my hats a bit, but I'll just sidechain like the first tiny little bit off them. So if you like check this out, you can see it's just sort of shaving off that first 10 milliseconds as well, so it doesn't interact with the transient of the kick or the snare as well. Whether or not that's useful to you, I think depends on whether or not your kick and your snare have a lot of like transient and click to them. If not, you might want your hats to interact more with the transients of your drums, but I kind of prefer to separate them at the moment. But anyway, I'm moving on to cymbals. So I've actually key mapped the random buttons here to key number 1. Which I did by just clicking on these random buttons and just hitting my 1 key after pressing Control K to get into key mapping mode. And then I've just kind of created like a simple hi-hat sequence here. And another cool thing to note with synthesized cymbals, or at least the ones that I've made here, is depending on the length of the MIDI note, like if I make this MIDI note longer, it's going to sound different than if I make this MIDI note really short. And I've actually been enjoying that as like a fringe benefit, I guess, of like synthesizing hats, because you quite often want like a lot of velocity shuffling things going on and stuff in hats. And this is just a really easy way to do it. Just make the MIDI notes different lengths, and you can get like a lot of variation in the sound just by doing this. Like it already kind of sounds like it has groove and solid articulation to it without having to like do anything with velocities, because I guess if you just send us like a slightly shorter MIDI note into it, you get like a different release period from the synthesizer. So all of these ones, I think are mostly operator as well. Let's have a look. Oh wait, this one is collision and operator. And let's see, what is this one? This one is just operator. And this one is also just operator. So I'll just spam the random thing a few times by hitting the 1 key, and you can hear some of the cymbals that you'll get here. Yeah, so a few different cymbal flavors there. There's 3 racks. One is called cymbal generator, one's called hi-hat generator, and one's called splash generator, but really they're all just drum tops. And there's like presets in these ones too. There's presets in pretty much all of these racks. And then I have this rack that I call, I think I just call it hat processing, but the macro is called hat betterer, and this just like kind of improves hats. It just adds like a little bit of chorus and stuff to them. So yeah, bunch of drum options. And then let's go down to basses and talk about those for a bit. So there's a lot of basses. There's like 20 bass generators. There's a couple of sub generators and then a bunch of mid bass generators. And these are all sorts of stuff. A lot of, like, I think this one might be wavetable. Let's have a look. Yeah, this one's wavetable. A lot of them are operator. And yeah, just there's a bunch of mapping being done in some rack over here. Which rack is it? Is it this one? I don't know. Yeah, if you want to open it and look at them, feel free. But they're kind of complicated racks, but they're kind of fun to build, honestly. So this one here, I call it bullfrog generator. It's basically, it'll just generate a bunch of like kind of gnarly bass sounds. Let's see. Let's turn this off. And then I got this one here. This is cooked bro step generator. What's going on? Record. That's pretty cooked. That's your bro step right there. And then, what do we got here? Dubstep yoy wow. Yeah, it's kind of like your guttural formant stuff. Gnarly generator. Definitely some gnarly stuff in there. Misc dubstep generator. Definitely some Misc dubstep. Modern wub. Definitely some wubs in there. What's this? Rhythm generator. Kind of rhythmy. What's this one? Shite generator. Mostly just shite. And vowel growl. This one's kind of nice. So yeah, if at any point you find a sound and you're like, whoa, how was that made? You can just open the rack and check it out. And if you think it's like slightly almost good but not quite good enough, you can mess with the macros, or you can open it up and mess with it that way. This was only, I think, 8 of the bases. There's like I said, 20 of them. There's a few sub options too. So here I got like just a clean sub generator. Hold on, I'll just play. Yeah, so we got just a bunch of sub options, different harmonics, different distortion flavors. Then I got this one, which I think is kind of fun. This is called Sub Plucky, and it uses tension to create this kind of like plucky top layer. Yeah, it's got that kind of like attack to it that I like. So yeah, that's kind of fun too. So yeah, I think that's basically it. There's a lot of racks in here. Also, when you get these racks, it'll come with a spreadsheet, and this spreadsheet has like a little bit of information about all of them, which you can reference if you're not sure what something does. Also, if you hover over the top, like over this bar of a rack, you can see down in the info view here, it'll tell you a little bit about it. So this says nice elastic rhythm bass designed around the note F0 and surrounding notes. There are some presets you can choose from, or feel free to hit ran and you get some other cool options. So there's a little bit of information about all of them in there. There's a few mixing racks in here that I really like OTT, and I've been using a ton. That's basically just OTT, but I've kind of macroed everything up in a nice way and added some presets to it. So if we open this, yeah, you can see it's just OTT, but it's all macroed up nicely. And usually I just throw it on stuff and just select between 25, 50, 75%. This preset here is going to be your normal OTT. This is going to be extra OTT, extra upward, extra downward, extra mids, extra highs, etc. So just kind of like an OTT plus kind of deal. But then I also have a rack called OTT plus, which is that plus more. And then yeah, there's a bunch of stuff in here. There's a fat rack that I made that I've been using quite a lot that I really like the sound of. And there's some group mixing stuff, like a group processing thing for drums. There's a mastering chain in there. There's a bass processing chain, etc. So yeah, I would just go check it out. Play around with it. There's some synths in here that are kind of fun. Yeah, definitely plenty of stuff to keep you busy. So yeah, hope you enjoyed that. Hope you enjoy this pack of racks, and have a good day. Thanks.